My parents made me their personal ATM since I was 13, taking every paycheck while promising I'd inherit everything someday. When they finally updated their will after 20 years of supporting them, they left everything to my younger sister Ashley while giving me their bankrupt restaurant with $200,000 in debt, an environmental violation. They expected me to keep paying them monthly while drowning in their toxic business, but I had been documenting everything. What I discovered about decades of fraud and identity theft destroyed their perfect scam and left them working minimum wage jobs. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. When my dad hurt his shoulder at the construction site when I was 13, my parents made it clear I needed to step up. My younger sister Ashley was only 9, so obviously she couldn't help. By 17, I was handing over every paycheck from my job at the local hardware store to keep our lights on in Phoenix. My parents would hug me and tell me how proud they were of their little breadwinner. Those hugs only came on payday though. When I turned 20, I got accepted to Arizona State with a partial scholarship. I just needed my parents to sign the financial aid paperwork. They refused. They said the family needed me here, working. Ashley got into the same university 3 years later, and they signed her papers immediately. They even took out loans for her while I was working 2 jobs to pay rent. The thing that really trapped me happened when I was 33. I tried to reduce my monthly payments to them from $3,200 to $1,800 because my fiancé Blake and I wanted to start saving for our wedding. My parents completely lost it. My mom called my boss at the accounting firm and told them I was mentally unstable and stealing from my elderly parents. She cried about how I was abusing them financially. I almost lost my senior accountant position. Here I got involved, and I had to show bank statements to prove I was actually giving them money, not taking it. It was humiliating. Last year I tried again. I told them I needed to skip just 1 month because Blake needed surgery. They showed up at my office and made such a scene that security had to escort them out. My biggest client witnessed the whole thing and dropped our firm. I lost a $45,000 bonus. So when they told me they were updating their will after mom had a mild heart attack, I saw it as my light at the end of the tunnel. They had always promised me everything would be mine someday, since I had sacrificed so much. Blake and I always planned to move into their home that my dad built on a huge piece of desert land outside Scottsdale. It was our dream home. Blake and I had just found out we needed IVF to have kids, but I told them we could start treatment after the will was finalized, and I was free. Sunday dinner came around and my parents were practically glowing. Ashley was there, which should have been my first red flag since she only visited when she needed money. Dad cleared his throat and announced they had finished with the lawyer. Everything goes to Ashley, he said simply. The house, the cars, the investments, all of it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Then Dad said, and you'll get the family business. The family business was Dad's Mexican restaurant that had been closed for 4 years. It had $200,000 in debt, plus environmental violations from grease disposal, and 3 years of back taxes. This is a joke, right? I said. Ashley couldn't hide her smirk. You'll take care of the restaurant, bro. You're so good with money, you'll turn it around, my mom said. Blake spoke up. That restaurant will bankrupt us. My mom's face hardened. Besides, Ashley will give us grandchildren. You failed us there too. The final blow came when my dad added, of course, we'll still need our monthly payments while you get the restaurant sorted. I stood up and walked out while my dad yelled about ungrateful children. In the car, Blake showed me something on her phone. She had been documenting everything. $387,000 over 16 years. Every payment, every receipt, every bank transfer. She had also been recording my parents' threats and had video of the office incident. I've been preparing, Blake said. I knew this day would come. My phone buzzed. It was Rebecca, my parents' paralegal friend. The restaurant has lines. Don't sign anything. Call me now. I researched the restaurant that night. It would need $250,000 just to break even. The environmental cleanup alone would cost $80,000. It wasn't an inheritance. It was a prison designed to keep me paying them forever. I went back the next day with a folder of documents. I've learned from my past mistakes, I said, placing everything on the table. Here's a cease and desist letter from my lawyer. My mom started crying. How will we survive? The bank is closed permanently, I said. I pulled out another document. I've already notified the creditors that I won't be accepting your business. Ashley went pale. But you have to take the restaurant. It's family legacy, your inheritance. Your problem, I said. Hope the house sells for enough to cover it. My dad stood up, red-faced. We'll destroy you. We'll call your job again. Try it, I said calmly. I have lawyers this time. I walked out as my parents turned on Ashley, demanding to know how she planned to pay for the restaurant debts. 3 weeks later, Rebecca called me urgently. She said she had something important to tell me about my grandfather's estate. Your grandfather left you a trust, she said. Your parents hid it from you. Turns out my parents had been stealing from me for longer than I thought. Rebecca asked me to meet her at her office the next morning. I brought Blake with me because I needed someone there who could think clearly. My hands were shaking when Rebecca pulled out a thick folder. She explained that my grandfather had set up a trust fund for me when I was born. It was supposed to be mine when I turned 26. The trust had started with $120,000 and should have grown significantly over the years. Rebecca showed me the original documents with my grandfather's signature. I recognized his handwriting from birthday cards he used to send me. Then she showed me withdrawal records starting from when I turned 26. Every single withdrawal had my signature on it, except I had never signed anything. I had never even known this trust existed. The signatures were close to mine, but not quite right. Someone had been practicing my signature and withdrawing money for years. The total stolen was over $180,000. I felt sick to my stomach. Blake grabbed my hand under the table. Rebecca pulled out more papers. She had bank records showing where the money went. Every withdrawal went straight into my parents' account. They had been stealing from me while I was giving them everything I earned. I hired a forensic accountant that same day. His name was Thomas, and he specialized in family financial fraud. He told me this kind of thing was more common than people realized. Parents stealing from their kids' inheritances happened all the time. Thomas spent 2 weeks going through everything. He found more than just the trust theft. My parents had opened credit cards in my name when I was 17. They had maxed them out and never paid them. That explained why I could never get approved for anything when I was younger. I thought I was just bad with money. Turns out my credit was destroyed before I even became an adult. Thomas also found something else. The house my parents lived in wasn't actually in their name. It was in mine. They had used money from my trust to buy it but needed my signature since I was over 18 by then. So they forged it. According to the paperwork, I owned the house free and clear. I'd been paying rent on a house I already owned. The forensic accounting revealed even more. My parents had been claiming me as a dependent on their taxes, even though I hadn't lived with them since I was 21. They were getting tax breaks while I was paying higher taxes as a single filer. They had also been collecting disability payments for my dad's shoulder injury while he was working under the table doing handyman jobs. Everything was documented. Every lie, every theft, every forged signature. Thomas compiled it all into a report that was over 80 pages long. I took it to the police. The detective assigned to my case was named Rodriguez. She said white-collar crime in families was tricky, but the evidence was overwhelming. She would need to interview my parents and Ashley. She warned me things might get ugly. I told her things were already ugly. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Then Ashley showed up at my apartment. She was sweating and looked panicked. She banged on my door until I opened it. She pushed past me into my living room, her eyes wild with fear. She said Mom and Dad were freaking out because the police had called. She demanded to know what I had done. I told her I was just getting back what was mine. Ashley laughed and said I was being dramatic as always. Then she saw the forensic report on my coffee table. Her face went white when she started reading it. She asked if I was really going to send our parents to jail. I told her they had sent themselves to jail when they decided to steal from me. Ashley tried to grab the report, but Blake stepped between us. She told her to leave before she called the police. Ashley left, but not before telling me I was destroying our family. I told her our parents had already done that. The next morning, my phone started blowing up. My mom had posted on Facebook about how her ungrateful son was trying to destroy the family. She wrote this long sob story about how they had sacrificed everything for me, and now I was abandoning them in their old age. My aunts and uncles started calling me. My cousin Sandra texted asking if I'd really called the police on my own parents. I didn't respond to any of them. Blake deleted Facebook from my phone and told me to focus on what mattered. Detective Rodriguez called that afternoon. She had interviewed my parents, and they denied everything. They claimed I had given them permission to access the trust. They said I had asked them to handle my finances because I was too busy with work. They even produced a letter, supposedly from me, authorizing them to make withdrawals. The letter was typed and had a signature that looked like mine, but wasn't. Rodriguez said she was sending it to a handwriting expert. She also said my parents had hired a lawyer. His name was Martinez, and he was known for taking messy family cases. 2 days later, I got a call from my boss. My parents had contacted him again. This time, they told him I was having a mental breakdown and needed help. They said I was making false accusations because I was off my medication. I had never been on medication in my life. My boss asked if everything was okay. I had to sit down and explain the whole situation. He listened quietly and told me to take a few days off to handle things. He said he understood, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. That night, someone slashed my tires. All 4 of them. The security camera in the parking garage had mysteriously stopped working that day. I knew it was Ashley, but I couldn't prove it. Blake wanted to stay in a hotel, but I refused to be driven from my own home. We installed new locks and a doorbell camera instead. The next week, my parents' lawyer sent me a letter. They were offering to settle. They would admit to taking $40,000 from the trust and pay it back over 8 years. In exchange, I would drop all criminal charges and continue paying them $1,500 a month. I laughed when I read it. They were still trying to keep me under their control. I told my lawyer to reject the offer. Things escalated quickly after that. My dad showed up at Blake's work. He told her coworkers that she was manipulating me and turning me against my family. He said Blake was after my money, which was ironic since I didn't have any money because they had stolen it all. Blake's boss threatened to call security before my dad would leave. Blake came home crying that day. She said, maybe we should just accept the settlement and move on. I told her no. They had taken enough from us. Detective Rodriguez called with an update. The handwriting expert confirmed the signatures were forged. She also found something interesting. The withdrawals from the trust had stopped 7 months ago, right around the time my mom had her heart attack. Rodriguez thought they had been planning to frame me for elder abuse and claim I had been stealing from them. The heart attack had messed up their timeline. Now they were scrambling. My parents tried a new tactic. They started calling my extended family with sob stories. They told my Aunt Maria that I'd cut them off financially and they couldn't afford Mom's medication. They told my Uncle Roberto that I was trying to steal their house. They even called Blake's parents and told them their daughter was ruining our family. Blake's mom called us, concerned. Blake had to spend an hour explaining everything. Her parents were horrified when they heard the truth. Thomas, the forensic accountant, found more evidence. My parents had been using my social security number for years. They had opened utility accounts in my name, then never paid them. They had taken out payday loans using my information. The total damage to my credit was staggering. It would take years to fix everything. Thomas said he had seen cases like this before, but rarely this extensive. Ashley tried calling me repeatedly. I didn't answer. She left voicemail saying we needed to talk. She said Mom was making herself sick with worry. She said Dad's shoulder was acting up from the stress. The last voicemail was different. She sounded drunk. She admitted she knew about the trust. She said Mom and Dad had promised to share the money with her if she kept quiet. She said she needed her inheritance now because she had debts. She begged me to drop everything. I saved that voicemail. Detective Rodriguez arrested my parents on a Wednesday morning. She called to warn me it was happening. She said they would likely be released on bail, but the charges were serious. Identity theft, fraud, forgery. The list was long. I sat in my office staring at the wall. I couldn't focus on work. I kept thinking about all those years of giving them everything while they were stealing from me behind my back. My mom called from jail. I don't know why I answered. She was crying hysterically. She said I was a monster. She said she wished she had never had me. She said Ashley was the only child who loved them. She said I would regret this when they were dead. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Blake held me while I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I was angry. So very angry. They made bail that afternoon. Ashley had put up her car as collateral. I found out later she had borrowed money from loan sharks to pay for their lawyer. She was in deep trouble, but that was her choice. She had chosen them over the truth, just like always. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings. My lawyer was building a civil case while the prosecutor handled the criminal charges. We had to document everything. Every forged signature, every stolen payment, every fraudulent account. The stack of evidence grew higher every day. My parents' lawyer kept trying to negotiate. The offers got slightly better each time, but they were still insulting. They wanted to admit to minimal wrongdoing and pay back a fraction of what they stole. They also wanted me to keep supporting them financially. It was delusional. My dad tried to ambush me at the grocery store. I was shopping for dinner when he appeared in the produce aisle. He looked older, grayer. He started talking about when I was little, how he used to teach me to ride a bike, how proud he was when I got my first job. He said we could work this out as a family. I told him we weren't a family. We were victim and criminal. He got angry then. His face turned red like it always did. He said I owed them for raising me. I told him children don't owe their parents for doing the bare minimum. He raised his hand like he was going to hit me. Another shopper, a woman named Carmen, intervened. She asked if I needed help. My dad backed off and left. I finished shopping with shaking hands. The criminal case was solid. The prosecutor offered my parents a plea deal. They would plead guilty to lesser charges and avoid jail time. Instead, they would get probation and have to pay restitution. The prosecutor said it was my choice, but trials were risky. Juries sometimes sympathized with elderly parents, even when they were guilty. I was leaning toward accepting the plea deal when Thomas called. He had found something big. My parents had life insurance policies on me. Multiple policies totaling over $800,000. They had been paying the premiums with money from my trust. I was horrified. Why did they need life insurance on me? Thomas said it was common in financial abuse cases. If something happened to me, they would get a huge payout. It cast the recent threats in a new, terrifying light. The prosecutor took this information seriously. Life insurance policies combined with threats and intimidation painted a disturbing picture. My parents ended up pleading guilty to all charges. They were sentenced to 15 months in federal prison with 4 years probation after. They had to pay full restitution, though I knew I would never see all of it. Ashley pleaded guilty to making threats and got 4 months plus community service. The loan sharks she owed were a different problem. But that wasn't my concern anymore. The house was officially transferred to my name. Blake and I went to see it after my parents were taken to prison. It was strange being there without them. Everything looked the same but felt different. This was supposed to be our dream home. But now, it just felt tainted. We decided to sell it and use the money for a fresh start somewhere new. Somewhere without memories of manipulation and lies. My credit slowly improved as Thomas helped me dispute all the fraudulent accounts. My employer was understanding once the truth came out in court. Some coworkers apologized for doubting me. Others still whispered, but I didn't care anymore. I had survived the worst my family could do. Office gossip couldn't touch me. The house sold faster than we expected. A young family bought it and seemed excited about the big desert views for their kids. I signed the papers without feeling anything. Just another transaction. Blake and I found a nice apartment in Tempe. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. No memories attached. 6 months into their sentence, I got a letter from my mom. The prison return address made my stomach turn. Blake wanted to throw it away unopened, but I was curious. She wrote about how hard prison was, how the other inmates were mean to her, how the food was terrible, and she missed her own bed. Not one word of apology. Just complaints and hints that I should put money in her commissary account. I threw it in the trash. Ashley got out first. Her 4 months were up, and she immediately started calling. I had changed my number, but she found the new one somehow. She left voicemail saying she was sorry, she had learned her lesson, She just needed a little help getting back on her feet. The same old Ashley. I blocked the number. Thomas finished unwinding all the financial fraud. The final tally was staggering. Between the trust theft, credit fraud, and tax evasion, my parents had stolen close to $350,000 over 18 years. And that didn't count the opportunities lost, or the emotional damage. Blake and I finally started IVF treatments. The first round didn't take. The second round ended in miscarriage. We were devastated but kept trying. The clinic was expensive, but for the first time, we could actually afford it. No more sending thousands to my parents every month. That money could go toward our future instead of feeding their greed. My extended family slowly came around. Aunt Maria called to apologize for believing my parents' lies. She said she should have known something was wrong when they kept asking everyone for money, while I was supposedly taking care of them. Uncle Roberto sent a card saying he was proud of me for standing up for myself. Even some cousins reached out with support. Not everyone believed me, but enough did. I got a new job with better pay and less drama. Nobody there knew about my family situation, and I kept it that way. It was nice being judged on my work instead of my personal life. My new boss, a woman named Patricia, became something of a mentor. She taught me to negotiate for myself instead of always putting others first. Prison changed my parents. When they got out after 15 months, they looked older and smaller. They moved in with Ashley, who was living in a tiny apartment. I heard through family gossip that they were struggling. Good. They needed to learn what it felt like to actually be poor, instead of just claiming poverty while stealing from me. The third round of IVF worked. Blake was pregnant with twins. We were over the moon but also terrified. 2 babies meant double everything. We started preparing, buying cribs and car seats, setting up college funds that no one could touch but us. These kids would have what I never did. Security and parents who put them first. That's when my parents made one last play. They sued me, said the house. Sale was illegal because they were under duress when they signed it over. Said I had manipulated them into confessing. Their new lawyer, some ambulance chaser named Gutierrez, filed a civil suit demanding the house money back, plus damages. It was desperate and pathetic, but I still had to respond. My lawyer laughed when he saw the filing. Said they had no case. The criminal convictions made it clear who the real criminals were. Plus, they had pleaded guilty. Hard to claim innocence after that. The civil case was dismissed quickly. The judge basically told their lawyer to stop wasting the court's time. My parents had admitted guilt in criminal court. They couldn't now claim they were innocent in civil court. Blake went into labor 2 weeks early. I was in a meeting when she called. I drove like a maniac to the hospital. 6 hours later, we had 2 perfect babies. A boy and a girl. We named them after Blake's grandparents, not mine. These kids would have a fresh start with no toxic legacy attached to their names. My parents found out about the twins somehow. They sent a card to the hospital. Inside was a note about how grandparents had rights, how they would take me to court for visitation, how I couldn't keep their grandchildren from them. I gave the card to my lawyer. He sent them a cease and desist letter. They had no rights to anything of mine. Not my money, not my time, and definitely not my children. We moved again, just to be safe. Different city this time. Flagstaff. Fresh start completely. I worked remotely, so the job wasn't an issue. Blake found a new position easily. We bought a small house in a good school district. Nothing fancy like my parents' place, but it was perfect for us. A real home built on love, not lies. The twins grew fast. Every milestone felt like a victory. First smiles, first steps, first words. My parents missed it all because of their choices. Sometimes I felt sad about that. My kids would never know their grandparents. But then I remembered what those grandparents had done. Better know grandparents than toxic ones. 2 years passed peacefully. We settled into routine. Work, babies, normal life. I even made dad friends who didn't know my history. We had playdates and barbecues without drama. It was everything I had wanted but thought I'd never have. Quiet happiness without constant crisis. I heard through the family grapevine that my parents were working minimum wage jobs. Mom at a grocery store, dad at a hardware store. The same kinds of jobs I had done as a teenager to support them. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ashley had moved back in with them after losing her apartment. 3 adults crammed into senior housing, struggling to make ends meet. They had chosen money over family, and ended up with neither. I started a small consulting business helping other victims of family financial fraud. Turns out there were a lot of adult children discovering their parents had stolen their identities and futures. I used everything I had learned to help them find justice. It felt good turning my pain into purpose. Blake suggested I write about our experience, start a blog or something to help others recognize the signs. I thought about it but wasn't ready. Maybe someday. For now, I was focused on moving forward, building the life my parents had tried to deny me, being the parent they never were. The twins are 5 now. They ask about grandparents sometimes. We tell them age-appropriate truths. Some people aren't safe to be around, even family. It's sad, but protecting them is more important than maintaining appearances. They understand in their own way. Kids are smarter than we think. Looking back, I'm grateful in a weird way. Their betrayal taught me strength. Their lies taught me to value truth. Their conditional love taught me to love unconditionally. I'm a better parent because I know what not to do. My kids will never doubt they're loved, never feel like walking ATMs, never have to buy affection with paychecks. The trust money is long gone, but I built something better. A life free from manipulation. A family based on love, not transactions. True security that no one can steal. My parents gave me nothing but trauma and debt. But from that, nothing. I built everything.